Good morning, Happy Valley, and welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast, sponsored by HappyValleyInsider.com. I'm your host, Richie O'Leary, and joined as always when we're talking Penn State football are my co-host, Dylan Callahan-Crawley. Dylan, some exciting news on the recruiting trail. I know usually these pods around this time are all going to be about the games, but there's still some exciting recruiting news as well. Kind of a little bit out of nowhere, sort of. I know we hinted at something happening with a Virginia prospect recently, and so it kind of spoken into existence 2 weeks later, I think it was.
I think we hinted at this silent commitment coming back on August 21st on our boards.
Mm-hmm.
We said that Penn State had picked up a silent commitment from a Virginia prospect. For most people, this obviously came out of nowhere. Anybody subscribed to Happy Valley Insider knew that a commitment was coming a little sooner than later, and that commitment came on Monday.
Yep, Monday. It's Matthew Outten, wide receiver / athlete per Rivals at least. Made his decision to flip from Virginia Tech, where he was committed to since July 1st, and flip to Penn State. Kind of tell me how this one kind of came together, and I know Penn State's been after him for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you said it pretty much. Penn State's been after Matthew Outten for quite a while. He was one of their top wide receiver targets in this 2025 recruiting cycle. Mm-hmm. He, wound up committing to Virginia Tech in early July after taking official visits to a couple schools in June. And ultimately, Penn State, just kept chipping away on this commitment for a while. And then as we said, Penn State picks up a silent commitment a couple of weeks ago, and then this happens on Monday. Funny enough, it happens after Penn State, picks up a huge win over West Virginia, and then Virginia Tech and Brent Pryde and his Virginia Tech program lose a little bit of a stunner to Vanderbilt this past weekend, which is a terrible start to their season as somebody who was, as a program that was picked to potentially be a dark horse in the ACC. And, clearly with how Florida State's now performed in the first week 0 and week 1, a wide open ACC. I mean, Miami may win that by default, but after that tough performance for Virginia Tech and after Penn State's big win, Outten commits to Penn State, or flips his commitment to Penn State. It's a major recruiting win for Penn State. They really love what Matthew Outten brings to the table and the potential that he'll have with the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, I mean, just looking through the scholarship offer list, 21 ships. He's got Duke, Georgia, Indiana, Maryland, obviously Penn State, Pittsburgh, South Carolina, Syracuse, Temple, Tennessee, Virginia Tech, West Virginia. Just watching his tape, you can just tell how fast he truly is. And that's probably the name of the game for him. He plays wide receiver and DB and kick returner for his high school team. But, I mean, the numbers, he still has to work a little bit on his game, it seems like. Just based on the film. When it comes to route running, just kind of creating that separation off the defensive backs a little more. Last year he had 22 passes caught for 480 yards and 6 touchdowns, so it's not like he's a nobody either. It's the speed factor that's the game-changing thing. I'm looking now, a 6.49 in the 55-yard dash, 10.9 in the 100-meter dash, 22.4 in the 200-meter dash. Like, he does everything for his track and field team, and he is just a crazy, crazy fast athlete. Yeah,
he's a tremendous athlete. Somebody, we just saw Penn State on Saturday. Two of their best athletes had a huge impact in the receiving game with obviously Harrison Wallace having, I think it was 5 receptions for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. Amari Evans flashes with a 55-yard reception. May have gone away with a little bit of a OPI there, but either way, two of their better athletes made big plays on Saturday, and that one against West Virginia. Penn State has been targeting, really good athletes at that position for a while now, especially in this 2025 class. I mean, you talk about a great athlete, Lyric Samuel, another tremendous athlete. Kobe Howard, I think, is an underrated athlete. He's coming off, obviously, kind of a pretty major leg injury a couple years ago, and I think he's starting to really just get back to where he was going to be athletically. Peter Gonzalez in the 2024 class kind of fits that mold too. A kid who tore his ACL a couple years ago and took a while to get back into the swing of things to get that athleticism back. But last season as a senior at Pittsburgh Central Catholic, you really saw that begin to show. And Unfortunately, a little bit banged up now for the Nittany Lions again, but yeah, they've been targeting really good athletes at the position the last few years, trying to get more speed at those positions. And I think that's ultimately, if Penn State's going to take that next step and consistent step as a program, they're going to have to continue to land these guys at wide receiver that are great athletes and have great speed, because in today's game, speed is the name of the game. You look at when Penn State has struggled in the past in games, it's usually against opponents with that great high-end speed, Ole Miss, Ohio State, so on and so forth.
Just looking through some of the posts and replies on our boards, I know Marty, a contributor for our site, he said that he thinks Matthew Outten's the top receiver in this Penn State wide receiver commitment list. Do you believe that? Because I lean more towards Lyric Samuel personally, but I've also seen him a lot more, so I might be a little biased.
I think Outten definitely has a argument for being so. I, like you, kind of may lean toward Samuel, but I mean, Kobe Howard was really impressive on national television a couple of weeks ago, against a very, very good St. John Bosco team. So I mean, I think Kobe Howard also, is in that conversation, but Penn State has three really good wide receivers there, and that's not even including Jeff Exiner, who is an intriguing wide receiver with a little bit of a bigger frame as well. Many think he could have played, defensive end at the next level if he wanted to. He's playing wide receiver. But yeah, I think Outten definitely has an argument to be that top wide receiver. I'd probably lean right now a little bit maybe towards Howard from an all-around standpoint. But, I mean, the fact that we three have three different selections here, I think says a lot about the potential of those three.
This might not be the only news for Penn State on the recruiting trail this week. Malachi Goodman is expected to decide this weekend. He's a four-star offensive tackle out of Paramus Catholic, currently number 243 in the Rivals 250 rankings. He has a top 5 of Auburn, Penn State, Georgia, Alabama, and USC. Based on what we've been hearing for the longest time ever, we've been reporting this on the boards. It's more of a Auburn, Penn State, USC battle, and now it sounds more like it's more of an Auburn, Penn State battle. Where do we think Penn State kind of lands there?
You can never count out SEC schools, especially those with NIL money, but which is all of them. But I do like where Penn State stands here with Malachi Goodman going into what is perceived to be the final days. I think Penn State has a great chance of landing him, and if they do land him, it would be a great way to really, I think, top off this 2025 recruiting class. I'm not saying that it means they're going to be done if they land him, but apologies for that in the background. But if they do land him, it tops off a really nice offensive line class for them, as he would join Owen Al Siena and Michael Troutman and Brady O'Hara in that group. The other three commitments, all 3-star prospects right now, but I know they really like the upside for all of them. And Goodman is somebody that I think would become the best offensive line commitment in that group and has sky-high potential, with especially looking at what Phil Tridewine has done in the development of offensive linemen over the last few years.
Yeah, no, this would be a huge win if they pull this one off. Rivals 250 kid. I think he's only going to go up higher in the rankings when it's all said and done. He's just high upside. Kind of looks like a multi-year starter at the next level.
Yeah.
Now, I'll be honest. I think this probably, and I think Al Siena is solid. I think Troutman's solid, but he's a little small and he can't really. There's no position flexibility there.
Yeah, he's a center all the way.
Yeah, so I think it's honestly Malachi Goodman or bust. I feel like if you get him, then this class is like, all right, it's a pretty solid O-line class. If you don't, it's more like not that great of an offensive line class. But
yeah, as it stands right now, it's definitely not an offensive line class that will blow the doors off, you look at it as a class that anchors the future of the Penn State offensive line. But it's also worth knowing, they had a really nice class last year. Cooper Cousins was a preseason all-freshman team selection for numerous publications, including Rivals. Donovan Harbour has a ton of upside. Garrett Sexton has a ton of upside. Yeah. Egan Boyer has a ton of upside. We didn't talk about much in camp, but this is a kid that Penn State believes could see the field as soon as this fall for the Nittany Lions. Probably going to redshirt still, but definitely somebody we're going to see take the field for the Nittany Lions this fall, and had a really good offseason, first offseason with the program. So last year's class was really, really good on the offensive line, obviously, and that's not mentioning Caleb Brewer. This class, I think, is a really nice complementary class to that, supplemental class to that. But yeah, if you add Malachi Goodman, that gives you, I think, between Cousins, Sexton, Boyer, and Goodman, 4 really, really high upside guys who have a ton of potential and a great chance if they develop under Phil Trautwein to not just be very good college offensive linemen, but potentially get to that next level in a couple of years as well.
Yeah, just knowing Malachi Goodman, being a Jersey guy myself, Paramus Catholic doesn't produce a ton, but when they do produce talent, they produce at a high level. Jabril Peppers, Rashawn Gary, Drew Singleton, like these are a lot of guys that were ranked really high, and I think he's the highest probably since Rashawn Gary.
Yeah, it's been quiet the last few years there, it feels like, but Goodman's definitely one of the better ones to come through in recent memory.
Well, here's the cool thing is that Russo, the head coach over there, left for a little bit and then just came back this past season, so they're going to start producing again, if I had to guess. Also, the really cool thing is he's a really good shot put guy, and that when you do shot put, it kind of focuses on your whole strength of your body from upper to lower. For offensive linemen, you can't ask for much more.
Yeah, I mean, you need a lot of obviously upper body strength and arm strength in that. So I mean, it's one of those things. Offensive linemen, it's all about that first quick step and that quick jab. And if you can get that quick jab down, if you have that quick jab and you have that power behind it, you're going to win those battles at the offensive line more than not. And I think Goodman has sky potential no matter where he goes. So it'll be interesting to see if Penn State can't close the door on this one, head into what is perceived to be the final days.
Yeah, my favorite part about him too is that he's going to enroll at college at the age of 17. Like in January, when he early enrolls at whatever school it is, he's only going to be 17 years old, and he's doing all this, and he's got position flexibility. I know we have him listed as a tackle. I know other networks have him listed as a guard. He can kind of go either way. I think guard to start, maybe, depending on if he grows more or not. It's kind of...
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about that age. Olu Fashanu, I mean, was, he just got drafted at, 20 years old? Something like that, 21. And he was going to be a first-round pick in 2023 at, I think, 20 years old. I mean, so that age is only going to help him as well because he still has even more time to continue to grow into that frame, to build that frame up and continue to develop.
Yeah. So something to monitor later on this week. No specific day yet as of now, but I'm sure we'll probably get one shortly. And if we do, you'll see it on the Lions Den forum. So that's really all for recruiting right now. We'll probably have more on a visitor list for this weekend's game against Bowling Green, home opener. But James Franklin did talk to the media on Monday for his recap of West Virginia / preview of Bowling Green. So anything really significant stand out there for you? I think it was just boring, kind of, to be honest with you.
That's a good question. I mean, overall, it was one of a more quiet press conference for Franklin. I mean, he talked about, Smith Vilbert a little bit and how he's, missed 2 seasons, but has really put in the work behind the scenes. And he mentioned earlier this offseason that he thought he was going to be a guy that was going to have potential breakout season for Penn State. He had a nice role in Saturday's win. So Smith Vilbert will continue to be a guy to watch going forward. He pointed out how the defense performed a lot better. Not a lot better, but better than it did a season ago against, he didn't say this, but against a West Virginia offense that was perceived to be a better offense than where it was last season when Penn State played them in week 1. He talked about Anthony Donka a little bit and how he just continues to show all the right signs, do all the right things, workmanlike approach. He did say they'll get known Richie in more and more. 2 of the more interesting ones came back-to-back, going back-to-back questions. First was Sandra Sahadak. Overall, he gave Sandra Sahadak a vote of confidence after missing that 47-yard field goal in that game. 47? Whatever it was. But,
I think it was 47.
I do wonder how long of a leash Sahaydak has for Penn State going forward. Obviously, that's not a chip shot. That's not an easy field goal to make. But
No.
Penn State's going to need him to make those field goals this season, especially as the season progresses, going into some of those tougher games. But he gave Sander a vote of confidence, saying that he's been consistent throughout fall camp, throughout spring, and that he still has a ton of confidence in him, and he knows he'll make the next one. So we'll see what happens there. But I do wonder what the leash is on Sahaydak. Also on Fleming, a lot of people were talking about Julian Fleming's lack of stats on Saturday in the win. He didn't have any targets, but notes that, on two big plays for Penn State in that game, 2 touchdowns. Fleming ultimately had a huge role in those touchdowns because of the route running that he was, the day he was having when it came to route running. He was one of Penn State's better route runners throughout the game on Saturday, according to James Franklin. Let's see. He said, we definitely want to get more involved in this game early in the game, but I think the most important thing is things he could control. He controlled. He blocked really well. He ran really good routes. If you go back and watch that play that we threw the touchdown, both threw the touchdown, Tyler Warren, that's because of Julian. Julian, basically, it's almost a 3 vertical scheme where he has to get to the backside hash, but before going to the backside hash, he attacks the safety in the middle of the field and crosses his face, which occupies the safety and doesn't allow him to slide over and get into the window of where we threw the ball to Tyler Ward. He also talked about the Trey Wallace touchdown. Don't know where Trey Lance came out of. The Trey Wallace touchdown.
Yeah.
But he finished off saying, again, just like things we talked about earlier, those are things that we talk about in our building. Those are things that we talk about for these guys' future. They watch, obviously.
You're good.
Obviously, love stats to go with it. Those would come. We're confident that I thought he played well. But yeah, it seems like Fleming continues to do all the little things right. It's just a matter of can he get those stats to go with it. Again, I don't think he's going to be a guy. We said this coming this season. Don't think he's going to be a guy that puts up major stats, but he should be a reliable pass catcher when he is targeted this season. And we'll see how long it takes for him to get going. This could be a good weekend for him against Bowling Green to perhaps get some confidence moving into the passing game.
Yeah, I'm not worried about him at all. I actually think the wide receivers looked really good overall. I know Harrison Wallace was obviously the star of this show, but I still think that group is perfectly fine. It was West Virginia, and they looked good. They scored a lot. Let it go. It's fine.
It's they definitely look good. They're running crisp routes throughout the game. There was plenty of people wide open throughout the game. Drew just so happened to kind of just focus on Amari Evans and Harrison Wallace throughout the contest, and we'll see if he gets a little bit more guys involved. Obviously going to need more than 2 guys involved going forward, not counting Tyler Warren, but I think it was a good first game for the wide receiver room after last year's performance throughout the season.
Yeah. Now, we talked about this on the post-game show, but I do want to go back to this Haydak thing. I personally I know James says he has confidence in him. I don't. I have no confidence in a guy that's 1 of 5 all-time in 3 years. I get it. Like, he missed 2 at West Virginia last year. He missed 1. And it's not, like you said, it's not an easy one, 47 yards. It's not a chip shot by any means. But he had a clean look at it, and it just veered right. And it's like, come on, man. Like, especially when you have Chase Meyer on the bench, who's had 85% field goal percentage last year with Tulsa. Also went 30 of 31 for extra points last year. You shouldn't miss any, personally. But And then you have Ryan Barker, who apparently is making a ton of noise as a preferred walk-on, or run-on, whatever you want to call him. So I feel like, honestly, you have to open up the competition again and say, hey, I know, Sander, you look great in practice. We've seen him do it in practice. But I can't afford to lose points like that. Now, with that game, it didn't matter. But in the future, those points are going to matter.
Yeah, I think this week is going to be important for Sander. I think if he can go out there and nail all his opportunities, he'll have a little bit of, that leash will grow a little bit. But if he struggles again this week, has a miss or two, Penn State's going to have to reopen that kicking competition because, I think on paper Penn State is the better team in 11 of 12 games this season. Yeah. But, you got a couple of tough road games there, including a trip to USC, and USC looked really good. this week. Kick field. Some of these games may come down to a field goal. Even the games that Penn State should win by by double digits may come down to a field goal. It's just how college football is, and you can't be giving away points like that.
Yeah. But that's really all we got for this week. We'll have more on a Bowling Green preview later on this week on the podcast on the YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, hit subscribe down below. It's free, it's easy, it's simple, and helps us grow the pod as well. But that's really all I got. Anything else before we sign off here?
I don't think so. I mean, we talked Bowling Green. We'll have tomorrow or Thursday we'll have a podcast up with the voice of Bowling Green Falcons football, Todd Walker. So that'll be fun to catch up with Todd and talk about the Falcons coming out of their Week 1 win, I believe, over Fordham.
Over Fordham, yeah, big one. I think it was 41-17, I think.
Yep.
Something like that.
This is a quality MAC opponent for Penn State, obviously one that they should win by a comfortable margin. I think, opened up as a 29-point favorite, now up to 34 points. We'll see how much that continues to grow. I will say the other thing about this past week's game that I'll be interested to see going forward is the rushing attack. Obviously, Nick Singleton had 2 long carries of 40 yards.
Yes.
But outside of that, it was kind of a slow day for the Penn State rushing attack. Katron Allen didn't really get going. Cam Wallace didn't get going. And I think outside his 2 runs, Nick only averaged about 3 yards per carry. Now, that West Virginia defensive line and front 7 were solid against the run, and but that being said, Penn State's going to have to do better in being more consistent in the rushing attack throughout the season going forward if they want to get to where they need to go. So that'll be just something I watch this week, and I think Penn State, in this game should come out and really set the tone on the ground early and often, and just build confidence in that rushing attack. I think they did a good job building confidence in the passing attack last week, and now just about to continue to build that confidence on the ground.
Yeah, no slouch of a Bowling Green team either. 4-star quarterback in Connor Bazelak, spent some time at Indiana, spent some time at Missouri. One of the better running backs at the G5 level, and I think it's Terrian Stewart. He had like 160 yards, 3 touchdowns last week.
Yep.
And then they arguably have one of the top tight ends at least per NFL mock drafts in Connor Hannon Jr., I think it is. But a very good tight end prospect. So someone to keep an eye on as well. But that's really all we got. Stay tuned for more later this week from the Penn State 365 podcast. Stay tuned for more on a visitor list on PennState.rivals.com, or check out the Lions Den forum for the latest, the latest talk and the latest scoop on Penn State football. But for me and Dylan, that's another episode of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.